Oh, all right. Looks like we are back live. Don't know why the bit rate's a little lower than normal. I just upgraded OBS, and for some reason it reset my bit rate to way below what it should be. But anyway, so welcome back to Jeremy Makes. My name is Jeremy, of course. Going to be continuing on with the Mk2S to Mk3S upgrade. Got my Mk3S upgrade kit right here behind me. Right here. Nice little kit with all the printed parts straight from Prusa. So that's going to be fun. Going to have to backtrack a little bit on what I'd done already. Sorry, it's been over 2 weeks since my last stream. Had a lot of real life IRL stuff happen. A lot of fun things, nothing major, but just lots of things happening that kept me away from it. Plus my internet stream, if you've been watching it all, any of the videos, and are one of my 2 or 3 people that watch this live, you know that my internet liked to drop out a lot, and I was having problems with my Wi-Fi because down here in the basement don't have any Ethernet lines. How to use Wi-Fi to do all the streaming, and it would sometimes be perfectly fine, and I would have no problems for hours, and then some nights it was dropping every 5-10 minutes, and sometimes it would drop after exactly 2 hours or whatever. So I finally did get somewhat of a fix in place. I got one of those Ethernet over coax adapters, 2 of them of course, and there was coax cables that were not being used running from next to my modem slash router, and the coax cable was terminated down here in the basement. So I was able to get that hooked up today and run an Ethernet cable from where it is over there back in the corner, which is back over that way, and to at least the laptop that is responsible for handling the streaming video. The other computers that I have here are all set up on Wi-Fi still, so still may have some problems with them, but hopefully the stream won't die down on me. So here's crossing our fingers, knocking on wood, crossing the toes down there underneath the desk too. Make sure, hoping that nothing goes wrong with the stream tonight. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. So let me go ahead and actually let me change back to. Sorry, I was getting some things set up. All right, so we've got the bare bones of our partially upgraded Mk2S to Mk3S. It might as well just be a new printer. There's very little that got reused from the old into the new. It's actually really is funny that they weren't lying, that it's pretty much a whole new printer. But anyway, because we haven't reused a part yet that I can think of, except for a motor. The motors have been reused, so that's the only thing on here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 motors have been reused. So let's go ahead and get back into our instructions. So they have changed a couple of the instructions, of course. As you can see on my kit here, a part of of chapter 4 was to get this back plate of the extruder on, which I do have to take off, because they have redesigned this so that you can actually attach the new one. A lot of it's changed, but a lot of it hasn't. So I'm going to have to take this off. So that's going to be my first step. And then all of this E-axis, the extruder axis assembly, is all now in one step. You do get the Z-axis rods and parts and motor all mounted in the previous step, but you don't do any of the belt tensioning or any of the assembly and attachment of the E-axis, which I always thought was weird anyway, because you leave this bottom portion loose while you're still trying to tighten these belts. So unfortunate that the belts have to be loosened, and then I have to retighten all that again, because of course that's one of the air quote fun parts. So let me go ahead and loosen up these belts. So the first thing I want to do is, I got to be careful here because I don't want to twist this the wrong way. It's righty tighty, lefty loosey, right? Yeah, there we go. Alright, so get that untensioned. And let's go ahead and loosen up this belt. There we go. And I don't need to completely take these bolts out. Just loosen them enough so the motor can slide back towards the the inside of the printer, and then I can probably just push this belt out. Yep. Well, I say yep, a little too soon for yep. You know what? Let me go ahead and take out these top two bolts, bolts. I keep flipping back and forth about what is what. Oh well, bit rates jump back up, but hopefully not skipping around for anybody who might be watching this or might jump on. There we go. Now that's nice and loose. You want to go ahead and get one of these screws back in so that the motor doesn't sit here and wobble around freely. All right, get that belt undone. Get that turned so you guys can see what I'm doing there. I can still see easily. Pull that out of there. Get my side cutters. Carefully cut these zip ties. Push that out of the way for a minute. Trash. I do want to try to remove these square nuts that are in here. I haven't read through the instructions yet to see if the Mk3S or the Mk3 to Mk3S kit that I received recently comes with new square nuts, but I'm going to just remove them anyway. So I'm just going to use one of the smaller Allen wrenches here. Try and get them to stick out a little bit, then use some pliers to pull them out the rest of the way. Let me go to the overhead. There we go. So kind of stick the head of the Allen wrench in there. Try to get it to stick out as much as possible. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it probably does come with new square nuts, because I would imagine they know taking these nuts out of this piece is pretty darn difficult. That's not being fun at all. Let me grab a smaller one. See if that helps. Yep, that helped a ton. I don't even need to. There you go. If you ever need to take these out, just grab one of the smaller Allen keys, Allen wrenches, whatever you want to call it. Use it to leverage those square nuts out. Let me grab my little temporary holder of things here, so make sure these things don't end up getting knocked out of the way anywhere. That one wanted to come out pretty good. And there's two more somewhere. Could be wrong. Let's see. That was that one. That was that one. Yep, right there. That's what I thought. Maybe there was two more somewhere. These ones are tough. These ones are even harder than the first ones. It's a very deep channel that they're in. It's harder to get this Allen key in there. Yep, I guess just tapping it helps a ton. There we go. All right, so that the box of holding out of the way. All right, so now we can get into the actual assembly. So we're to where we should be with the leaving step chapter 4, going into chapter 5 now. So got our necessary tools, got our Allen keys, our needle nose pliers, our 1.5 or 2mm Allen key for nut alignment. Before we start, this is the most important and hardest chapter. Take your time, don't rush. Proper assembly of the extruder is essential. The bag with fasteners included 2 M3x20 screws needed later. Separate them now to avoid using them instead of the M3x18. So let's go ahead and do that. So that should actually still be with this original kit here. M5, there we go. And we are going to need this as well. I don't think we're going to need the rest of these yet. And then let me open this up. I did open it already. So here's the kit here. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. So here's the kit opened up here. So we've got the letter. Congratulations on getting the original Prusa i3 Mk3 to Mk3S kit. I want to take this moment to thank you again for buying the Mk3S upgrade kit directly from Joseph Prusa. Your completed assembly guide for upgrade. So in the kit that I've got, I ordered the upgrade kit from the Mk2S to the Mk3S at just the right time, and my shipping date landed at just the right time to where they automatically put me in with the group of people during a certain small time frame that I got this upgrade kit for free, and I got it with the printed parts already. So these are the printed parts right here. Anybody who orders it, you know, from that outside that time frame, gets filament to print new parts. Why they made that decision, I have no idea, but you know, I'm happy. You know, didn't have to print new parts, although I would have been fine with printing new parts. It's just easier and convenient. Didn't have to take the time to do it, especially with the fan shroud having to be in print from ABS. I'm not a big fan of printing ABS because of the smell. It's in the printer's in my basement, and I don't have any way to isolate it or keep the heat in or anything like that. I print with ABS and was successful in the past, but just it's not preferred. PETG is much easier. But anyway, so it comes with the filament. If you were receiving this kit from here going forward, basically bag of fasteners, the textile sleeve, and then the fan shroud printed from ABS. So I guess they do provide you with fan shroud printed from ABS. Anyway, so that's that little paper there. So 5 E-access parts. We are going to need this. Let's go and pull those out. This is the new sensor, or at least part of it anyway, with the IR sense cable and the IR sensor. Extruder spare parts. So that's interesting. It has a and it's got the magnets in there too. I was wondering why they were sticking together. There's the magnets for the new extruder. Hybrid mechanical / physical, or mechanical / infrared triggered sensor. Another set of magnets in here as well. So E-access upgrade. Can I just pull that? Oh, there it goes. Extruder spare. Oh, so they give you spare magnets too. Oh, that's interesting. Cool. And then some more of the printed extruder parts. I didn't see a print. There's the fan shroud. I printed it in black. And then the textile sleeve. I'm going to leave that textile sleeve in there for just right now. I'm not going to need it for a bit. Because of course that comes at the very end once you get everything on there. So, what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was getting out the, we need the M3x20. So we need the 2 of those. M3x20 should be in here. You provide 2 extra in the spare kit. I'm going to take it out of the normal kit. I'm going to put the spare back in its box. So let's get the, and again, if you don't remember, the bag has this nice printed to scale parts list on it. So we can easily get the M3 times 20 bolts out and compare them to our printout here, and we can find out that that's one of them. So throw that right there. And because the M3 times 18 looks very similar, which that's an M3 times 18, it's very easy to confuse the two. So M3 times 20. So if you look at the two there on the video, looking at the video, it's very hard to tell the difference between the two. If you put them right next to each other, of course it does, but it's easy to grab the wrong one. Actually, that's even harder to tell now. So M3 times 20, get those two out of the way, because that's what it asks us to do, right? The bag with fasteners include 2 M3 times 20 screws needed later. Separate them now to avoid using them instead of the M3 times 18. Yep. So that's what we want to do there. So I'm going to pull that all out of the way there. Push this over there. Push that over there. All right. So the hot keep the magnets apart. And it's a difference. They can break each other, so they're together in the package. I'm just going to leave them where they're at. The hot end for the Mk3S needs shorter PTF tubes, 45 millimeters. Mk3S compatible hot ends are marked with an orange dot on the heater block. So that's a green dot. They provide a new they provide a PTFE tube. What does that mean? I have to so that's confusing because it doesn't come with a new extruder. You're supposed to use the old one. I wonder if the spare bag. Nope, I don't see any PTFE tubing in the spare bag, so we'll have to see how this goes because I don't see in this list here PTFE tubing that's 45 millimeters long. I of course could trim the one that's on here, but that kind of would defeat the purpose of having this pre-assembled. Anyway, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. The bag includes extra orange dot and heater block. Pay great attention to cable management. If you miss some important steps, you will need to disassemble the extruder. So we want to make sure that we pay close attention to cable management. Extruder body parts preparation. For the following steps, please prepare. We need the, okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go and get the hardware out of here because I'm going to need some of it soon. Alright. So I'm guessing this is the new bag that replaced this bag, maybe? I don't know. I'm already starting to get confused. So now we need the printed parts. So we need the extruder body times 1, the extruder adapter, printer. The extruder body is this larger piece right here. We need the extruder printer. That's what they call it. There's two, that's funny, there's two shrouds in here. Funny. I don't see the extruder printer in this bag. Oh, adapter printer, there we go. That is, it's named on the bag. So we need this piece here, which they are calling the extruder print adapter printer. And then we need the FS lever, which is this piece here. Perfect. This continues in the next step. So we're also going to need, from step 4, M3 times 18. Come on. These plastic bags like to not be fun for me. All right, so the M3 times 18, those ones that we were saying we didn't want to separate out before, now we need those. So M3 times 18, so 1, and then we need M3 times 10, 1, got one right there, yep, M3 times 10, 1, we need M3 NS nuts times 2, so 1 and 2, get out of there, good job. And then we need M3 nuts, just standard ones. One anyway. And we need 2 of those, yep. Where is the other one? There we go. Nope, there it is. Come on. Can't get my fingers around it. There we go. Got it. 2. Steel ball times 1. Is that in that bag? Oh, no, it's in this bag. Steel ball, steel ball. Why don't I see a steel ball in here? There's one in the spare bag, so I think I've already mixed up the bags. So that was very smart of me. Yep, I sure did. Yep, there it is. Yeah, this is the Mk3S kit here. So whatever, I'll just use the hardware from the other one, but I do want to make sure I have this bag out because it's going to have all the correct parts. So this bag came from the original Mk2S to Mk3 kit, and then this bag, which you can't see in the overhead camera right now, came from the newer kit, from the upgrade to the Mk3S kit. So I'll make sure to get those separated there. Of course, I use the bag to put all these pieces on, including the steel ball. It still has the magnets in it. There we go. Come back here, steel ball. Stop rolling around. There we go. You stay on there. All right, so let's leave those magnets in there for now. And we got our 2 magnets right there as well. Perfect. So extruder body assembly. So get started. We're going to take the 2 M3NS nuts and insert them into the extruder body in the back. So the back of the extruder body here. And actually, let me move this camera over. I don't know why that's... Sorry, I'm like making you guys dizzy moving stuff over. There we go. So we're gonna look at our back of our extruder body. We've got our 2 square nuts. One goes at the top here above the large opening. Grab my pliers. Get that in there straight. And then the other square nut, get it started in there. And carefully press that in. Same thing here. Oh, that does not want to go in. It's a tight tolerance for fitting these square nuts. There we go. And then I am going to use one of my Allen keys here to make sure that they're aligned. Not that one, that one. There we go. That one's good. That one going a little bit more. There we go. That one's good. And then we want our 2 regular square nuts to go right here in the middle. Gonna grab just an extra M3 screw out of my little box of holding there to get these seated in here all the way, at least started anyway. Not long enough. Try to feed one in from the other side real quick just to get this nut to get all the way down into its home. As you can tell from the pictures, they're actually down below this this surface right here. The nuts are recessed in. It looks like about 1 millimeter or so. So I'm just taking one of those M3x20 screws they told us to set aside earlier, and I am using it to get the nut seated all the way down into its home all the way. Just going to go ahead and do that with this one too. No reason not to start with the way that works. I obviously don't want to over tighten, as I warn in all of my videos. We are working with metal fasteners and plastic parts. PET is a strong plastic, but it is still more fragile than whatever metal these screws and nuts are made out of, usually an alloy steel of some sort. All right, so we've got that done, and now we need the M3x10. That is going to go into the side here. This is the part that holds the pin to probe. Obviously that square nut was not aligned as much as I thought it was. So let's see if we can slide it down in there a little bit more. That looks better. All right, yeah, that's catching now. Sweet. All right, so now we've got step 5, first picture done. Now we want to take the, whatever they call this piece, careful into the FS lever. So we want the FS lever, and we want the little tab on the FS lever, you can kind of see there, up, and then we want to take the 10x6x2 magnet, which I'm guessing is the smaller of the 2 magnets in this little case here. It's funny, they use a little SD card case. Now we want to be careful. These look like they're neodymium magnets. very strong, but they're very fragile. And no, I don't mean they're Italian. It's just if they come together too fast, they can break each other. So I want to get the big one back into its home so it doesn't interact with anything else. And then we slide this the 10 by 6 by 2 magnet into its home. Looks like it slides pretty well in there. A majority of the magnet will be hidden inside the printed part. So yeah, so I'm also seeing the same thing. It's not the whole magnet being in there, but most of it's in there. Let's see if I can get it to go a little bit more. I'm not going to try too much. This is a very small with very, looks like just a few layer thick piece right there. So I don't want to over muscle that into the place. So step 5's done. Step 6 on the FS lever assembly. So insert the FS lever into the body. So it looks like we're looking to flip this over just like this. And then I have moved my lighting and it's not as lit over the top as it normally is. So we've got our extruder body, the bolts we just placed in, along with the bolt for the pin to screw that we put for the pin to, the bolts, the nuts we just inserted, the screw for the pin to probe inserted, flip it over to the other side. And then we're going to use the FS lever in the body. So it looks like we take that very small portion of the, see if I can, there we go, you can see it against my skin there. This small portion here, and it goes up towards the top. It really only fits in this space at the top right there in one direction. We want to secure the part with the M3x18. So let's make sure that's the right one. Yep, M3x18. Tighten it, but ensure the lever can move freely. So we want to make sure that this is getting tightened into place. And it's really weird that we're not putting this M3x18 into any nut. It's going straight into plastic. There is a hole here, but there's no nut. So we're just threading this straight into plastic. This is not one of the best designs for something like this. I mean, there's no problem with it when you provide the hole for it. Threads will bite right into the plastic, and it is in the preferred with the vertical layer line, so the threads kind of go through the layer lines, but it's not really the best design idea. I would normally think that they would have some sort of square nut, lock nut, or something either come through on this side, which is really close to this cutout right here. I don't know if you can see in the camera up there, but there's a, there it is. There is a hole. This is the hole that the screw is that I'm tightening it into right now. So not a lot of space, maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. So putting one of these in there probably wouldn't have been the best idea. A lock, nylon lock nut probably would have gotten in the way of this viewing window. I believe this is just a viewing window. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and tighten it down. But the lever needs to move freely. So I'm just going to get it to where it's almost touching. So the lever moves freely. Let's do another little turn. Lever still moves freely. Do a little turn again. Still moves freely. Still moving freely. That's nice. Starting to feel tight there. Let's see if we can get another little turn in there. Oh, that's still really free. Nope, not free anymore. Got to back that out a quarter turn. No, a little more than a quarter. Do another quarter. Get a full half turn. There we go. It feels too loose. All right, we're gonna leave it at that. It's like just barely touching the plastic, but that lever moves freely there. All right, so insert the left lever, secure the part. Yep, warning, be sure the plumage is done right, otherwise the filament sensor won't work. Insert the bigger magnet the 20 by 6 by 2 in the extruder body, it will stick out. Correct setup. Magnets are repelling each other, thus the levers push to the right. Incorrect setup. Magnets are attracting each other, thus levers pull to the left. So basically, once I get this magnet into its home, so here on the upper camera you can see this is our lever, moves back and forth. Oops, and of course the magnet's attracting the head here. There we go. So there's the lever, moves back and forth. See the magnet moving there. And then there's this slot here for the bigger magnet. And we want to make sure that they're repelling each other. So I'm going to put this ball bearing in there. All right, so let's see. So you can see whenever I do this, that's pulling that lever towards it. That's the wrong way. It needs to go the other direction. Push it away. Yep, there we go. So now when I push on that lever, you can hear this, the click, and you can see the movement of it going back in. That works really well. Nice. All right. So, and as you can see in the picture there, I'll go ahead and zoom in on that picture. You can see the big magnet, a little magnet, and this is the lever I was talking about and the direction that it goes. So, got that done correctly. Steel ball assembly, step 7. Take the printed adapter printer and insert the steel ball. So this is our little L-shaped steel ball trap, it looks like. Roll the ball to all sides to ensure smooth movement. So let's take the ball, throw it into its new home, and if you roll your finger around the ball, you'll feel it moving, and it moves in all the directions. In case of rough surfaces, remove the ball and clean the inside of the printed part. Place the printed part together with the steel ball in the extruder body. So how do we do that? So that's the way it goes. So there's this little cone, as you can see in the picture here. Let me zoom in. So you got this little printed cone here, and then you have your two bolt holes, it looks like. So basically, when you're looking at the printed part with the screw we just inserted and the magnet we just inserted up, that cone needs to go up in the same orientation, and then the ball will be trapped between your new magnet lever and the back of the housing you just inserted. And then this cone, not sure what that's for yet. Again, I didn't read forward in these instructions, so I'm not 100% on what we're doing as of right now. I mean, I knew the concept of it, but not 100% on what it is that we're doing. So now, don't use any screws to secure the adapter printer. It should hold its hold inside the extruder body by itself. Okay, perfect. Extruder motor parts preparation. So here's our last reused part from the old printer. So the following steps, please prepare. Let's get the extruder motor out. My last motor. All right, so we have our Prusa extruder motor. And then we're going to need the extruder motor plate. So extruder motor plate's going to be in this bag here. Extruder motor plate is this piece here. Perfect. Yep, that's the extruder motor plate. And then we're going to need two M3 times 10 screws. That's going to be our shortest screws here. That's one. And I just had the other one. There it is. Two. All right, so we got M3 times 10. Attention, there's a lot of there's a set of Bondtite gears. Make sure you have all the parts and you are using the correct ones. Now, Bondtite gear with lock screw. If the screw is out, gently screw it in. Leave the space inside for the shaft to use later. Bondtech without the lock screw, bearing and shaft. Keep the bearings somewhere safe. They tend to roll away. So I'm going to leave those. I think those are in the bag here. But what I do need to do is I do need to take off. I did not take off the old gear from the extruder rotor here, from the Mk2S. So undo this set screw. There we go. That was on there tight. This is not Bondtech. Boy, that set screw does not want to let go. There we go. I'm just going to place that safely in the motor box, out of the way. It doesn't say to get the Bondtech out yet. Oh yeah, it does, right there. So we need just the one with the set screw. We're gonna leave everything else in this bag. So Bondtech gear with the set screw. Keep everything else in there. Oh, my set screw fell out. Where is it? There's one. Is there two in there? Yeah, there's two in there. Is there two in this one? Nope. So my set screws fell out of, or at least were not inside of, and I say fell out. I don't know if they ever were inside of this gear. And these things are tiny. Allen wrench here. There we go. Find the set screw hole, and there we go. Now it's in its home for right now. So yeah, those are all still in there. All right, so now we can move on to step 9, Bondtech gear assembly. So we want to make sure that we're orientated. Take the extruder motor plate and secure it using 2 M3x10 screws. Use the cable as a guide to properly orient the part. So we want the wires towards us, basically. And then we take our printed part here. I don't know why this overhead camera keeps focusing weird. I think it's the change of lighting, sorry. And we want this rounded cutout here that's for the hot end heat break to be up and down towards us, so that it's facing the same way as the wire is. So it'll hang off the edge there. It's got a nice little alignment with the motor shaft here, and then we're going to use 2 M3x10 screws to tighten it down to the motor body. So I'm not going to tighten that all the way yet. And we're doing it in just the bottom 2 holes here. So hole 1, hole 2. We're leaving hole 3, as you can see, the big red X on the picture. It says not to do that one yet. Resist the temptation to place the screw in the 3rd hole. Leave it for later. Rotate shaft is in the picture with the flat part facing out. Slide the gear on the shaft. The lock screw must be facing against the flat part of the shaft. Tighten the screw slightly. So we want to have it so that the recessed tooth part with the smaller recessed part for the filament is down towards the motor, and then we want the bigger gear to be up towards the top of the shaft. Make sure our set screw is in the right spot, and then there's a channel for the filament inside the printed part. Align approximately the teeth with the gear, the small teeth on the gear. So we want to tighten that set screw just a little too much, a little overzealous on getting that set screw set. There we go. So want that set screw to line up with the shaft, and then we want the teeth to line up with the channel. So there's a channel and the teeth need to line up with it. So let's see if we can there we go, get the zoom there. So I'm gonna stand up and you're gonna see my head in the overhead picture. So I got my zoom camera here. Oh, let me focus in. It's all manual focus. There we go. So there's the Bondtech gear, and there's that channel right there. And we want that channel of where the filament's going to go lined up with that textured the tooth portion where it's going to feed the filament. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So I'm just going to make sure and get that as aligned as I can by eye. I was a little low in that video, or in that shot there. If you noticed, not too bad, but just eyeball it the best I can to make sure that's all in alignment with the filament path. Yep, that looks good. And it says to tighten down the set screw slightly. Don't tighten the set screw just yet. We'll align it properly first. See the next step. We're not tightening it down all the way, but it did say to tighten it down slightly. I'm not tightening it down all the way. Bondtech gear alignment. Take a piece of 1.75 filament. You can use the bundled one on the spool. Don't use the back nylon, which is too thick. Straighten the filament as much as possible. So I have a piece of white right here. Let me see if I can get this to be straight as possible. Oh, just broke it. That's nice. Any other filament around here? Another open filament right now. And then we're going to stick it through. Whoop, got a low disk space storage. I'm recording this, so you can use the bundled one on the spool. Don't use black nylon. Place the filament along the path and align the gear properly. The filament will always be slightly bent. Use it anyway for the slight alignment. So you can see that there. And then you can check with also an Allen key as well. So I'm going to use the filament first. I think that alignment looks pretty darn good. And then we can use our Allen key here. I need a thinner one. There we go. There we go. She's one of the small ones there. And I think that's pretty darn good. All right. So now that we've got that down, tighten the screw if needed. We'll make the final check later. So I'm just going to tighten the screw down. Just don't want it moving. All right. And now we're gonna do the step 11, extruder cover part preparation. Actually, while I'm here, let me take a look at the disk space warning. Whoops, wrong screen. Let's see. I know what it's telling me, or why it's telling me. Get rid of some of these old videos that I don't need. Sorry about this, just want to make sure I don't lose my ability to edit this in case there's a problem in the future. So I just got rid of some old videos I don't need. There we go. All right, so now we need the extruder cover, body cover. Let's take a look and see. That's going to be in this pack here. So the extruder body cover has this weird little arm on it. So here we go here, and now we need the an M3 square nuts ×1. So I guess that answers my question earlier. They do provide all the square nuts that you need. You don't need to move any of those other ones out. So this is one of them with that ever controversial Dyson port that people are arguing for and against. But we're going to want to slide that square nut into the one hole for a square nut on this part. Gonna use my pliers. There we go. Let's get an Allen key and get that aligned the rest of the way in. Got it in there. Sweet. All right, so we don't want to put anything in our strange little arm here. That's for the fan. And now we need the hot end part preparation. For the following steps, please prepare hot end for the Mk3S ×1 M3. So let's go ahead and slide this off to the side. Those are the spares. So let's just do something over here real quick. Sorry. Why doesn't my mouse want to move? There we go. So now we need M3 times 40 screws times 3. So those are those really long ones that are in here. So 1, 2, and 3. M3 times 10. We need 2 of those. 2. Perfect. And then we need the hot end, which is right here. So got our explanation points here. M3KS ready hot end is marked with an orange dot on the heater block. If yours differs, contact our support immediately. We'll use some screws later, but keep them around. Don't cut the main zip tie on the hot end cables or remove the rubber band. It will make the assembly easier. I guess I should have read these instructions long before doing this stream, because I should have contacted the support about this one, because I am not marked with a orange dot. I am marked with a green dot. So if I remember correctly from the earlier instructions, it said that this PTFE2 needs to be 45 millimeters. I'll scroll back up in just a second. So should be a simple fix, although nope, that is not going to be a simple fix because they are cut to a specific size and shape. So there's so this PTFE tube is cone shaped at the top and then pointed shape at the bottom to allow for better travel of the filament through the heat break. And unfortunately, well, no, it says I have one in here. So let's see. So these are not the instructions for the upgrade. This is the instructions as if I had this kit delivered to me new. So there we go. It says there's 2 PTFE 4 times 1.85 times 4.5. I'm going to go ahead and put that out of the way so I don't get them confused. And I'm going to put one of these back in the bag. I do actually want to compare here for a sec. Yeah, it is much shorter. So now luckily I remembered that the pointed end goes down into there. Don't want to cut the main zip tie, of course. So I'm going to risk it without contacting support. Maybe I'm going to regret this later on, maybe not. But I think that if I were to go and find the instructions, it would tell us, you know what, I am going to go find the instructions. So let's see, original Prusa i3 Mk3S to Mk3 to Mk3S upgrade. So let's go into here, E-axis assembly. So let's go into that step. I don't need to do most of this because it's already pretty much done. Let's fast forward to the part it tells us about the hot end. There we go. So for the following steps, we need the hot end. Wait, so I wonder, it doesn't say anything about the cable there. So introduction, disassembly. Let me go into this instruction here, see if this says how I'm supposed to do it. Make sure I'm not gonna mess anything up. Disassemble, disassemble, never assembled any of that. So luckily I don't need to disassemble it. All right, remove the PTF tube and press the black plastic collet. Remove the old PTF tube from the hot end. Inserting the new PTF tube. Open the upgrade package and look for a bag with the PTF tube. PTFE tube, check the new PTF tube, make sure both ends are clean. So let's make sure both ends are clean. Yes, I do not have any of those wispy things. Now it's time to insert the new PTFE tube. Note, there are two different ends. One end of the tube has a rounder outer edge. So that's this end here. This must be inside the hot end. Look at the other end where the tube is drilled inside. So that is the end down here, right here. Look at the other end. Look at the other end where the tube is drilled inside. So that's the way it looks right there. The filament flow goes from the conical end to the rounded outer end. And then, so this is the side that we're putting into the hot end. Push the black collet. This is the side where the filament. This part must be the outside hot end. Press the black collet in. Slide the tube all the way in and hold it. Use the using second hand. Pull it back out. This is critical for how to work properly. So basically, we want this to be seated all the way up against the heat block. So I need to push down the collet. Slide the tube all the way back down and in. You want to make sure and push it in the whole time. And then using my second hand here, pull back up on the black collet. There we go. Pretty sure I got that in first try. Yay! So anyway, all right, so got that done. So glad I went and found those instructions. Let's move on. No need to contact support. We're gonna use the screws later, but keep them around. Yep, got those all set up and ready to rock and roll. Hot end assembly. Take the two M3 times 10 screws and insert them into the body. So we want these two here. Let's put this back in this box. 2M3 times 10 go into these two holes here. Those two holes? Yeah, it's those two holes. So there's no nuts there. Okay. Doing this now makes the assembly slightly easier, but both holes are shallow and the screws might fall out. If this happens, you can continue without them and put them back later on. You will be noticed. Also note that a few upcoming pictures, the screws might be missing. Okay. So now the hot end assembly was completely reworked from the Mk3 to avoid bad placement. Also, any future maintenance is much easier. Place the hot end next to the extruder body. See the grooves of the printed part, which are in the shape of the hot end. Yep, correctly place the hot end. Cable should point in the direction behind the hand. We will align them in the next step. So basically, we want the front top piece that we're looking at here with the magnets up and that cone from earlier on the where the steel ball goes, and the bolts we just put in all facing up, and the hot end's going to go in with all of the cable facing back. Basically, we want the extruder heater block, this flat portion where the wires are not coming out, to be towards us. And there is these rounded shapes here. They're the same, match up with the same shape of the hot end here. And the PTFE tube goes right up against that channel there. So we can align it better later on according to the directions, but that's the way it goes in right there. And it is suggesting that we use a box. So I'm going to grab the box that it came in. That's just going to fall out. So you get out of the way for a minute. So here's the box that it came in. Oh, those screws are not. Come on. All right. So it wants us to place that down right there. They don't have the screws in because doing this makes the screws pop up, but that's fine. Yep, we got that in there like that. Step 14 is where I got the box. We want the motor to go down onto, and I just moved that. The motor to go down onto there. So on the motor housing, you'll see we have matching semicircle grooves here. And that's going to go down straight. And you'll also notice that there's these little arms right here. There's this little arm right here you can just barely see. Those all match up. That's cable wiring, or cable, you know what I'm trying to say. Where cables are going to go later. Blah. So we want to place the extruder body with the, in order to protect the hot end cables to ensure proper orientation, is highly recommended to use a box, the one provided in the kit. Place the extruder body with the hot end box. Make sure the cabling are all pointed down, so the motor is going to be pointing the same way as the hot end, and then it should just pop right into place right there. And now should be holding the hot end pretty well. Place your finger temporarily on the longer magnet. Place your finger temporarily on the longer magnet and place the extruder motor assembly on the extruder body. The bond take care might pull the magnet out while assembling parts together. Well, mine did not, so that's good. Make sure both printed parts are aligned. Yes, everything is nice and aligned there. Place your extruder cover on the extruder body. Okay, so now this piece goes on here. And the arm goes towards away from me in this case. There we go. Okay, I see what's happening now. So that all goes in like that. And then the two M3x40, two of the M3x40 screws are going to go through both pieces we just pushed on here and into the nuts that we had placed earlier. So going to go ahead and place your extruder aside for tighten them, but be careful, they are slightly longer than the thickness of the entire assembly. So I'm just going to get these so that they grab for right now. And then since they are longer, I'm going to make sure these screws aren't in a spot where they can't be accessed here in a minute. There we go. All right, so make sure that hot end is nice and square. All right, they are longer by a good amount actually. So I'm going to tighten them down. So I don't know if you can see, you can see in the video a little bit right here and right here. Those are those screws I was just tightening. I still have some gap in between all that, so I'm going to grab another Allen key, Allen wrench, tighten it down a little bit more because I don't know if it's just this bit or if it's the screws. They're already starting to jump on their track here. I guess if I press a little harder, it would work. Shouldn't have to press that hard. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this Allen key here. Yeah, see, this Allen key grabs perfectly fine. So I'm guessing it's just that bit. All right, I feel like that's tight enough. All right. Need that somewhere accessible. So now we're going to place the extruder aside for a few steps. We need to prepare another part. Leave it on the box to prevent damage. I am just going to go ahead and do exactly what they said. I'm going to put it on its side so that the screws aren't pushing down into the box. Push this off to the side. There we go. So now we need the X carriage. This is one of the parts that was redesigned, of course, allowing access to the belts after everything's assembled. So we've got our X carriage, this little like almost T-shaped piece here. Nope, that's not it. Ah, I lied. Haha. The X carriage has the pass for the belt. There we go. There's our X carriage. And there we got the channel there. And we've got where our linear bearings are going to go in here. So now we need, this is the piece I took all those square nuts out of. We need the X carriage times 1, M3 and nuts. So we need the 2 regular nuts and 4 square nuts. Let's go ahead and pull those out of the upgrade bag. So we've got, come on. One regular nut. One regular nut, and now we need 4 square nuts. So let's get, where are you? There. So 1, 2, 3, and there's the last one I need for this step. 4. And then we need the IR sensor cable. So put that back in the bag there. IR sensor cable is in this package right here. Perfect. Got all of that. Beautiful. Still have that one left. Did I miss a step with the other long one? No, that was only 2 right there. Okay. IR sensor cable, got it. And now X carriage assembly. For the following nut insertion, use a screw. That's an order. Seriously, use a screw to pull the nuts in. Both have to be properly seated in the X carriage. So down deep inside this groove right here, where the Z-axis, well, this is the X-axis, belt is going to travel. There are 2 holes for the standard M3 nuts that we're going to be putting in. So it's telling us to use screws to seat these properly, which, yes, that would be very hard to do without doing it this way. So I'm going to use these M3 × 20 screws they had us set aside earlier. And I'm going to screw that one up in there. Get this nut started on there. And it looks like they've got specific little grooves designed into the printed part to pull that in. And then I can use the screw to seat it all the way in. It does need to be seated all the way in, otherwise it will obviously affect the travel of the belt. And it looks like from the pictures that they're recessed in a little bit. So I'm just going to keep tightening this until, yeah, there we go. That's good. All right, we got that down there. And now let's get the other side in there. That one's a little tighter. Let me grab my long file real quick. Should help. Helped a little, not a lot. Helped a little, not a lot. All right. Get that up in there. All right, there's the second nut now. Get it on there. Ooh, got it. Blocked it with the chest. Rejected. Get that down there. Just using the pliers to make sure that the nut is oriented the right way. It's flat portion up and down in this orientation here. So two of the flat faces of this nut need to go up and down. This hole's a little bit small on the tolerance side of things. So the screw is kind of hard to twist to get this nut all the way down there, but it's doing its job. Once I get that nut down in there, that feels like it's all the way down, and that looks like it's all the way down. Yep, that looks good. All right, so got those two nuts in there. Don't forget to remove the screw. Yeah, doing that now. And then it says take all 4 of the M3 and square nuts and insert them in ensure correct alignment using an Allen key. So let me get this other one separated back out. That's one of the ones we had to separate out earlier. So this has the same locations for these square nuts as before. So let's see if I have to use that old trick with the screw again to get these in correctly. I probably do. Oh no, that's going in way easier than it has been for me in the past. Use that Allen key to get that aligned in there. Allen wrench, whatever you want to call it. My terminology changes moment by moment. First it's a screw, then it's a bolt, wrench, and then a key. There we go, that one's in, that was aligned. All right, got this one. Yeah, tolerances on these are pretty loose. There we go, got that one. Might be prudent to try and keep these this part oriented the right way so that you don't lose any of these nuts. So this is the last M3. So there used to be 2 down here, now it looks like there's only 1. Oh, and of course I drop it. Let's try using the pliers first. It's in a weird spot here. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing I've done before. I'm going to actually take this M3 times 20. They had to separate out before. Use it to get the square nut started into its new home. And then pull the screw out while I'm pushing down on it. And that did not work as easy as it has in the past. Of course not. Let me just go ahead and try this by hand for a second. Of course, this one hole doesn't want to do its job. Do this, try this again. go. See if I can get this oriented and then push it with the pliers into its home. Okay. Keep that pressure on there. Yep, there we go, got it. All right, put this in 3 times 20 back, separate it out, and then use my Allen key to press it the rest of the way in, and the Allen key to make sure it's aligned, and it's aligned. All right, so we've got those all there. From now on, keep in mind the nuts are inside, avoiding rotating the X, what I said. X carriage downwards, or the nuts might fall out, yeah, so want to make sure, try to keep it so that the channels for the belt where the angle goes down, because that's the way the nuts are in there. So now we need to assemble the IR sensor cable. So now we've got the new IR sensor cable here. We're going to open this up. Locate the end with the small connector. All right, so we have 2 ends on this sensor cable. We have a large connector and a small connector with a little hook on it. Place the cable in the X carriage. Use the small printed overhangs to keep the cable inside. So we want the small connector. We're going to turn this upside down to go up through this printed part. And there's this nice channel that's printed into here. So it kind of zigzags its way through. That's a little difficult to place in there. There we go. Once it's in, it's in. There we go. Kind of clips in. And it says that the distance between the connector and the X carriage should be around 15 millimeters. We will adjust later. I don't have a millimeter. There we go. I actually do have a millimeter ruler nearby. So we want 15 millimeters. I'm going to go ahead and check it now just to make sure. Let's turn this around. There we go, that's 15 millimeters. A little longer than it should be. That's about perfect right there. Sweet. Remember this path, we'll use it for other cables as well. So now we're going to assemble the X carriage. Following cable management is critical to the for the extruder to work properly. Read the instructions carefully. Start by making a small loop just below the extruder motor. We'll leave a slack about 2 to 3 centimeters, 1.6 inches, 0.8 to 1.6 inches. This comes in handy for easily disassembling in the future. Then guide the cable into the channel all the way to the back. So we need our extruder back again here. Perfect. So this is the channel that I referenced earlier. Right there. There you go. You can see it. And then this is the channel we're about to run this motor cable through. So we want to leave a little bit of a loop here and then run it through this channel. I'm not going to leave a lot there, but just enough. There we go. And slightly bend the cable down to form it around the edge. There we go, right there. So it's showing that we're going down. There we go. And away from the channel. Also prepare the X carriage, both M10 screws if you haven't already. If you haven't already used them, and the longest Allen key with the ball end, you will need it. So they call it an Allen key too. Maybe that's why I keep switching. Let's grab that longest Allen key. So I haven't prepared the X carriage, or yes I have, it's right there. It says I need 2 M3x10 screws, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those out now. Because it didn't tell us to pull them out earlier. At least I didn't see it. But I may have missed it. There it is. So we're going to rerun that motor cable through there. Following cable management is crucial to the extruder to work properly. Read the instructions carefully. Grab the X carriage and place it from the back of the extruder. So this is the back where the wires are all sticking out and our bolts are sticking out. Make sure that the motor cable follows the channel. So there's a channel here. So these two parts go together. So I see, so there's this channel here that we have the bigger portion and the sensor cable going through. This is the same channel that the motor cable is going to follow. So we want to kind of feed the motor cable through into this channel at first, and then slide the rest of it, there we go, into there. And then the rest of this is going to go in, and these longer bolts that stick out, I feel like they have homes they're going to go into, which they do. Should all line up. Fairly decently. I feel like it's lining up that easy. Feels like it's going in and finding close to its home, but not really. So let's see. So here, so this is what I was talking about. So that motor cable goes into this large channel that you see right here, along with the sensor cable, and then comes out this channel here. So that's why I need to make sure it's happening at this point. Problem I'm running into is the bolts don't want to go into their homes, or they're being extraordinarily difficult to go into their homes. It's not really something I can show on camera either. So you also want to make sure that none of the wires are getting pinched at this point. Can't tell which bolt it is that's giving me the problem. I have a feeling it's one of these little 10mm bolts. I think it's that one that had the really tight tolerance on it for the printed part. So let me go back. I think I can get that done. If no wires are pinched, then use the M3x10 screw and Allen key. Oh, so I did prepare those earlier. That's what it was. So we prepared those earlier. So now you need this longer one. And the reason why we want this longer one, and I can't use my driver, is because this longer Allen key they provide you in the kit has the ball end on it, which I do have a set of ball end Allen keys ready for my use. But because we're doing this in an angle, you need that ball end to get to this Allen, to this M3 screw in the first place. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to try to make sure that this motor cable motor cable is getting pushed into its home, and that the sensor cable is also going into its home. And I'm just going to kind of get that started and hopefully into its nut. Yeah, there we go. That feels like it hit the nut there. And then same thing with this other one. There we go. That's much better. Nope, that doesn't feel like it's going in correctly. There we go. All right. Turn the extruder to the other side if needed. Insert the M3. Don't tighten the screws. We'll need to adjust the IR. Don't tighten the screw. We will need to adjust the IR sensor cable. Good job. Grab an extra gummy bear. So basically doesn't want us to tighten it all the way down yet. So I'm just going to get it till it's just snug and not tight, just so the part doesn't move around on me too much. It wants us to be able to move this sensor cable, so I can still move the sensor cable. And I am going to grab a gummy bear. I've been thinking about them this whole time. So grabbing one of my gummy bears. There we go. Yeah, they're in a drawer right there next to me. Wide open, staring at me this whole time. Those yummy, yummy gummy bears. All right, so I'm going to double check, make sure none of the wires look like they're getting pinched. The motor wire is not happy. It's just not in its home all the way yet. But that's just because it's fighting to be back straight. So I think we should be okay with that. It's using this long Allen key to try and maybe tuck it in behind this printed part here. Keeps fighting me. Doesn't want to go into its home. Alright, I can get that later. Alright, so now we need the IR sensor preparation. So our IR sensor is in this fun anti-static bag. I am going to do the smart thing here. Touch this power supply back here. It is plugged in. Try to discharge my static, any residual energy that I have. So now we need that with an M2x8 screw. Wow, there's an M2 screw in there? Wow, did not know that. You think that would stick out like a sore thumb in this bag of M3. There it is. M2x8 screw. Boom, got it. So I'm going to need an Allen key for that. Don't need to be switching out my bits. There we go. That should be it right there. And now we want the IR sensor assembly. So place the IR sensor on top of the extruder body and secure it with the M2x8. Tighten M2x8 screw. The sensor should be able to move, but be careful the PCB isn't indestructible. So, and we want the sensor portion to go down into the body. So on this extruder sensor, which they have sealed, let me cut this open real quick. That worked. No, that didn't work. There we go. Yes, I was cutting away from myself, but towards my fingers. Don't know where my scissors are. I have scissors around here somewhere. I don't know where they're at. So this IR sensor has these, don't be careful not to touch the board, the black plastic piece where the IR goes across, and then it has the 3 prongs. So we want the 3 prongs to stick out the back of the extruder body away from the motor. And then we want the two black prongs to go down into the sensor body. There we go. Just like that. And then we want the wire to be plugged in. Connect the cable, mind the correct orientation of the cable and the wires. Leave a slack behind the sensor like in the picture. Don't create too big a loop as it might interfere with the frame. It just needs, if needed, to adjust the length by gently pressing and pulling. So first thing I gotta do is have enough to push this into its new home. And it looks like that the locking piece, the pin, goes up with the red wire, in my case, away from me. If I've got the motor to my right and the back of the extruder to my left, the red wire goes away from me, white wire is in the middle, black wire is towards me. So now that I've got that in, I need to pull a little bit of slack down into the body. Don't want to pull too hard. It's a little precarious. Oh, I guess I should have locked it down first with the screw. That's very smart. Skipped the whole thing. I even said it out loud. Grab my Allen wrench here. Go. I think we're just screwing into plastic again here. That is not working good for me. Let me find, I am going to switch out my this is the right one. Oh. There we go. Let's switch out my driver bit here for a smaller one just to make this easier on myself. Again, you don't want to tighten it too much. As they say, the PCB board is not indestructible. Once I got that down fairly decently tight, I'm just going to do this, the rest of this by hand. So the sensor should not be able to move, which it cannot move. Perfect. It says leave a little bit of extra. Extra. But not too much extra, looks like. And the sensor is not moving. Perfect. I'm going to switch this back to the correct size bit. Get this, whoops, tighten that up before I was ready. There we go. Get this Allen keys out of the way. Get that out of the way. Yep, so I've got some extra there. Don't have as much extra as they do, but so I can pull a little bit extra out now. There we go, that's about as much extra as they have. Oh, okay, ready. Check once more, no cable is pinched, and tighten both M3s. Okay, so now it's telling us to tighten both those screws, so I do need that longer key again. The sensor cable is not pinched. The motor cable still doesn't want to go into its home all the way. So hopefully I can get that held into place as I tighten these M10 screw, M3 times 10 screws down. Okay, so that's pretty much held into place. So now we're ready to tighten these all the way down. That's still not wonderful where it's at. Come on, get in your home, motor cable. I have a feeling if I don't get you tight now, you're not going to be able to get down in there. That That's good there. Might need to tighten it up a little bit here in just a sec, but let's just get these down to snug to tight fit. All right, so now go a little tighter there. That feels good. That feels good as well. And of course, that motor cable doesn't want to stay in its home. I mean, I know I don't want you to be pinched, but I also don't want you to be loose either, buddy. Yeah, whatever. That works good. I think that works good there. So now we've got that. Leave slack behind the sensor like in the picture. Yep. And then that one as well. Already. Okay, go. Yep. All right, now finish the sensor assembly by inserting the M3x4 screw. Make sure all the gaps are gone. So our last M3x4 goes into the extruder motor from the back side of the extruder. It's the one we left blank earlier, which, if I'm not mistaken, is this one. Yep, it is. And we can tighten that down and get rid of all the gaps. Now you want to be very careful. Again, we are tightening into the motor assembly, or excuse me, the motor body. And those threads in there are very, very fragile. And if you strip them, the motor has to be replaced. That's not going to be easy and or fun. So I'm just going to get that down, and then it has you double checking all of the seams to make sure that there are no gaps. So I don't see any big gaps or gaps that I can do anything about at this moment. Everything looks pretty darn good and aligned. Yep, everything looks good and aligned to me. For the following steps, please prepare hot end fan Noctura and M3x14 screws, 3 of them. So let me push this out of the way for just a second. I'm going to put these M3x10 that I had extra out back in. We need the M3x14. So let me get my little guide over there ready to rock and roll. M3x14. Are you an M3x14? No, you're not. You're an M3x18. Are you an M3x14? Oh, you're an 18 as well. There we go. There's an M3x14, I think. We need 3 of those, right? Yep. So 1. That was, looks like there's another one. 2. And. Nope, that's a times 10. Boo! Thought I had it. That was a times 10. There we go. Times 14. Yep, that's it. Get these additional ones out of my way here. Gonna pull my Noctura fan out. Beautiful. Nice silent fan there. Make sure you're using the correct screws. Keep the cable in a bundle for now. Hot end fan cable adjustment. For easier installation, remove temporary black wire from the cable bundle and release at least 1 loop, then tie it back. So let's go ahead and pull this twisty tie off. It's called a twisty tie, guys. Want to undo at least 1 loop, and then we put the twisty tie. They call it the temporary black wire. It's a twisty tie. Come on now. And we're going to put it back on to keep things bundled up nicely for now. Before you move to the next step, take an Allen key and gently push the motor cable to the channel to create space for the fan cable. So yeah, that's what I was trying to do that whole time. So yeah, there's it's easier said than done. Doesn't want to stay in its home. So now the hot end fan assembly. The fan has 2 sides. One has a Noctura sticker. Make sure this side is facing to the inside of the extruder, which is unfortunate. And then we want to make sure that the fan motor cable is upper right hand side and then folded over on itself, just like in that picture. And then it gets placed and run through that channel. along with the motor cable and then joining in with the sensor cable. So I should be able to feed that straight into there. And then get that cable bent around the edge of the fan. Go into your home. Yeah, so that's how it goes there. So it should go in the upper right hand corner towards the motor, up over itself, and then back down the back side. First create a loop on the cable. Make sure the back protective wrap is close to the edge of the fan. Yep. Place the fan on the extruder and proceed the following way. Start replacing the fan cable in the upper channel. Then slide the fan close to the X carriage and gently push the cable in using an Allen key. Before you push the fan all the way in to the left, place the cable in the X carriage channel. So basically it's saying put that cable up there, bend it around that way. And then we should be able to use an Allen key and the fan itself to get the cable to go into its channel, which is easier said than done. Because that motor cable does not want to stay down in its new home. There we go. Stay down there. There we go. Motor cable. Allen key, a little push of the wire. So what I'm trying to do here is use the Allen key and the fan itself to get the cable to go into this channel. And it should not be pinched, obviously. There we go. That part's in. That part's in, and that part's in. All right. BEA, beautiful. Once we have that all in there, slide the fan close to the X carriage, use the Allen key. Final check, the fan is oriented with the cable facing up and the cable goes through the upper channel all the way to the X carriage. And the X carriage, don't forget to use both channels. Make sure the cable isn't pinched along the way. So can't see because the fan's in the way, but let's go ahead and move the fan away for just a sec. It does look a little pinched right there, but should be able to, there we go, push it in, push it in. Everything's in. That looks good. All right, using the 3M 3x14 screws to fix the fan in place. Don't over tighten them. You can break the plastic casting. Make sure that the fan can rotate freely. Please leave the last hole empty for now. It's not a plastic casting, it's a plastic printed part, but hey, no judgment here. This isn't a casted piece, they're printed pieces. So because we are screwing straight into a printed piece here, you do want to be careful, obviously. Pretty much nothing about this assembly you don't want to be careful on. So we're going to leave this bottom right screw out for now, it says. And we're making sure that the Noctura label is on the inside. So get those all three started. There we go. So now I can start to get these tighter. The fan is now somewhat attached. Just gonna keep going around. Get a couple more turns in to make sure to get them all pretty even. And it's really tough to tell when you're just screwing into plastic where you're at with how tight things are. So it's just always better to be a little bit more cautious. As soon as you start to feel a good amount of resistance, just go ahead and stop. Get the other ones done, and then check the part to make sure it's not loose. So I don't have any play in any direction, and the fan rotates freely as per the instructions. Leave the last hole. So again, so let me put it oriented the way they have it in the picture here with the motor to my right. So we have the bottom left, and top right, all with our M3x14 screws in it. The bottom right stays empty for right now. And now we're moving on to the next step. So we're going to put the extruder back out of the way for just a minute. Oh, nope, we're going to need it. Don't know why I'm doing that. Let's take this back out. For the following steps, please prepare. Whoops, went way too far. There we go. We're going to need the printed part for the extruder idler. So that is in this bag here. Nope, that's not it. That's it. All right, so we got our extruder idler. We're going to need our other Bondtech gear without the hole. Without the set screw hole, and then we're going to need our bearing shaft. Yep, and then we're going to need our 2 bearings, our shaft bearings. These are tiny little shaft bearings, so be very careful with them. And then we're also going to need 1 M3 nut. One M3 nut. We're going to need M3x40 screws times 2. So times 40 times 40. Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Done. And we need our idler spring times 1. And if we look at the next picture here, one of these M3x40 screws gets the idler spring on there. Got it. Easy enough. Step 28, bearing assembly. Insert both bearings into the pulley. Be aware the bearings can slip out during assembly. So why are we doing it now then if they can slip out? So I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm about to put this down anyway. I can't hold on to it, but it's going to slip out when I pick it up anyway. Why can't I do step 29 first? Anyway, we're going to go ahead and just move on. So now with the idler door printed side toward, or the bed side towards me, got this open printed area for this nut. I'm gonna get this inserted in. I'm gonna use one of these M3x20 screws that I've got sitting here laying about waiting for whatever they're supposed to be done for, to pull this piece all the way in. Guess I could have just used an M10, but hey, too late now. Because you can see from the picture there that it is recessed in. So just going to use this screw, get that pulled all the way into its home. And then the next step is going to have the shaft through the Bondtech gear, but we need to make sure it's in the right orientation. All right, so insert the pulley in the idler as shown in the picture. So if I have the other side, so we just inserted the nut onto that side, right? We flip it directly over so that this notch that you see there is facing me. Actually, let's make it so the knot is facing to my left side, just like it is in the picture. So I'm going to orient it just like in the picture. Got the 2 printed part areas for the Bondtech gear shaft to go through. We want to make sure, see, they just fell right out. So now would be a time to put them in and then put it into place so they didn't fall out. We want the large tooth portion to be towards me and then the filament tooth portion to be away from me. We get that placed in there. Hold it as best as we can with my thumb, and then this shaft is going to go in and through. You do want to be careful here, as it says, slide the shaft through with the idler and pulley. Use reasonable force. You will break the pen apart, so you don't want to use too much force because these vertical parts can just break right off. We are working with the the layer lines. So there is some weakness in that side to side, the way we're forcing it right now because of that. So I did use my desk there to push that shaft the rest of the way through. And I don't feel like the shaft is all the way through yet. There we go. Yeah, now it's coming through the other side. It's flush on that side, and it's just into the hole on that side. And then you want to make sure that this now freely spins, which it does. Perfect. All right, filament alignment check. Let's use this opportunity to check once more the proper alignment of the filament and the Bondtech gear. Push the filament from the top through the Bondtech into the PTFE tube. Where did that little white go? There it is right there. So now I'm going to take the filament, place it through where the filament's going to go, and into the PTFE tube. Looks like it could move just a smidgen out. You know, a smidgen. Let's loosen up the set screw a little bit. Slide that out just a hair. That's a little much. That looks really good now, so let's go ahead and tighten that set screw back down, making sure to hit that flat part of the motor shaft. And that looks fantastic. Love it. That's looking good. All right, so now check the alignment, and if needed, adjust the position. Tighten the screw, but be careful, you can easily strip it. Yep, remove the filament. I love they had to put that step in there. Extruder idler door mounting. I should say door. Place the extruder idler door in place and secure it using an M3x40 screw. So we just want the one long, don't tighten the screw too firmly. Serves as a shaft for the idler. Check that the idler can rotate. So we're going to place this in this hole here. And then we're going to take this final M3x40 and it goes into the final threaded hole for the motor. It says to tighten it, but don't tighten it too much because you do want the door to swing open just like that. So you can see door swings open, no problem. So let's see if we can get it a little bit tighter here. Yep. There we go. Don't tighten the screw too firmly. Serves as a shaft idler. Check the idler can rotate freely. Yep, no problem still. And I feel like that's tight enough. That's pretty darn close. That's darn close. All right, so now use the M3x40 screw with the spring on it to introduce tension into the idler. Hold the extruder idler on the other side until the screw reaches the nut. So, Since there's only one screw, you will need to introduce a large force. The head of the screw should be aligned or slightly below the surface. Still not get. Oh, so it's from the other side. Gotcha. Okay. So you got to hold. All right. So you got to hold the door closed because this is going to thread all the way through and into that nut on the other side. And since the screw is spring loaded now, it's going to take some force, which is actually not taking a whole lot of force from me. Oh. So there's only one screw you need to do. Sorry, the head of the screw should be aligned or slightly below the surface. That's aligned, and that's slightly below. Okay. And the screw's sticking out the other side a little bit. So I feel like that's pretty darn good. Yeah. All right, now print fan support preparation part. So for the following steps, please prepare the print fan support. So let's go ahead and just set this to the side. And we need print fan support. There it is. And we're going to need an M3 times 10 screw. Got it. And an M3 times 10, or excuse me, M3 nut. So the M3 nut goes into its home. It doesn't tell you to do that yet, but it doesn't look like it tells you to do it later either. So the M3 times 10 screw, so it's missing that completely. It goes into the cutout for the for an M3 times an M3 nut. Yeah, and I'm just going to use this screw that it's got me pulling out here just to make sure it's seated all the way in. That's a pretty loose tolerance hole for that. Obviously, we're working with small printed parts here, so don't over tighten, but that is seated down in there now. And then now we want to attach it to the body. Oh, it does tell you to do it right there. I just missed it because the picture switched. So yeah, there we go. So now we take the M3 nut and insert it all the way. It is crucial. You want to make sure it's all the way in, which it's all the way in. It goes deep down into that hole right there. Secure the support using M3. So now we're going to want this angle to be down. We take our extruder body with the motor to our left here. The mount should be facing away from the body. And you might need to, if you've left a little bit more than normal of the motor wire, push it out of the way a little bit. In my case, I need to a little bit. And then this M3 times 10 screw goes into this part, which I'm going to go ahead and just put that in there now so I don't fiddle with holding things and moving and putting a screw into its home. And I am going to grab this Allen key with the ball end to make things easier. And then there was a nut that we placed in earlier. I believe it was one of the square nuts we placed earlier that this screw is going into. So using this ball end, I can get in there and tighten this up. And I'm using my fingers to try and make sure that I'm not letting this part twist. Since we're only using one screw, it wants to twist on its home. All right. Yeah, the inclined area toward the nozzle. Secure the support using the M3 times 10. Got that. Great. Fan shroud preparation. For the following steps, please prepare the fan shroud. So I have 2 fan shrouds in this kit. For some reason, there's one in this one. There's one in this one. So I'm just going to use the one that came in that bag there. And then I'm going to need a M3 times 20 screw and a M3 square nut. So square nut. There it is. Got that down, and M3 times 20. So that's going to be one of these longer ones, correct? Oh, wait, is that an 18? That's an 18. Oh, you know what? That's one of the 2 M3 times 20. So one of the 2 M3 times 20 that we pulled out earlier are now right there. Perfect. So we want to make sure that this square nut goes into its home here. There's this slot on the fan shroud. We're going to place it right in there. Boom. And then going into the body of the extruder. So if I've got the motor facing me, the half moon shape piece will go towards the motor. And, or no, wait, what am I doing here? Did I do something wrong? No, I didn't. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. So this is where the last fan mount's going to go into come into play. So there's this. So if we're looking at the extruder here, we've got this last hold on the fan that we did not use yet. Our hot end with all the wiring for everything coming out of the back. There's a cutout right here, and this tab that we just placed the square nut into goes into that. And then we use that M3 times 20 screw we just got out to go through the fan, through the printed part, and into that nut. And that didn't work, me holding it like that. Oh, get my driver. There we go. All right. Get that through this printed part here. All right. I can see the screw coming through the other side. And yeah, feel that force, got it stopped. Yep, that's good. All right, so now we've got the print cooling fan shroud in place. Now we want to prepare the print fan parts. Print fan parts preparation. For the following steps, please prepare print fan ×1. So let's go ahead and place this down. Print fan ×1. That's the old, if you saw me pick it up in the corner of the picture there, that's the old fan shroud from the Mk2S to Mk3. It's kind of interesting the differences that they've made there. Anyway, but now we need M3 ×20 screws ×2. And that's what they had us pull out earlier, and we just used an M3 ×20, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So M3 ×20. There's one of them. I had us pull 2 out, but then we left others in here. Interesting. M3 times that's the ×18. So that's an M3 ×18. It's gonna have to be another M3 ×20 in here. I know there is. M3 times. It says there's only 2. We just used one of them, so that means there should be 3. I didn't accidentally use it anywhere there. Instructions, you told me to use it just now. In fact, it's still on the screen, right here. Mount the fan shroud of the extruder, secure it with the M3 ×20 screw. And now you're telling me I need 2 more M3 ×20 screws. Yeah, you told me I need M3 ×20 screw right here. Fan shroud was initially designed for its 18 screw, but based on the feedback to make the assembly more convenient, if your extruder bag includes only 2 screws, please use one from the oh, see, I didn't read the instructions all the way again. It's my fault. Of course it is. That's right. I'm used to it being my fault. So let me grab another M3 ×20. I wonder if I've got one in my box of holding over here. This looks like it might be one. Nope, that's an M3 ×18. You with M3 ×20? Huh? Nope, you're not. You? I don't think you are either. Nope. Are you? Nope. No, these look like M3 × 20 to me. So box of holding does not have it. So let's follow the instructions and go to the spare bag. Spare bag. And 3 × 20. That looks like it might be one right there. Right there. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Yes, and 3 × 20. 2 of them. Great. Got it. Spare bag, go back to your home. And then the M3 nut ×1 is what we need now. So M3 nut, there it is. Got it. Oops, didn't get it. Now I've got it. There it is. Get you out of the way. Get you out of the way. Keep you handy though. So all right, so it says first slide. I want to leave the cables tied up. I think it says that somewhere, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it anyway. First slide the fan and the fan shroud. Make sure it is aligned properly. Secondly, fix the fan in place using one M3 × 20 screw. Tighten carefully or you will damage the fan casing. So this is a molded casing compared to the printed part casing from earlier. I am holding the extruder completely the wrong way. There we go. So we got our motor up top. We got our fan mount, and then we've got the fan shroud that we just inserted or we just attached. So now the open end of this fan goes into the shroud and gets affixed into place with one of these M3 × 20 screws. There we go. It's just slide in good. There we go. Now that aligns or not. Nope, not aligning. There we go. That's aligned. And of course, as the warning says, and just as a fair warning anyway, always be careful. Plastic on plastic with metal fasteners. Definitely not a recipe for the best. So now we've got our final setup for the fan. So we want to turn the extruder around, insert the M3 nut. No need to pull it in. We'll use the screw. And then we're going to place the remaining M3 × 20 screw through the fan casing and into this nut here. All right. And again, we're not over tightening because plastic. All right, that's a little tight there. We're good. Fan is on there. It looks like it's seated in the shroud all the way. Don't see any gaps around it. And then last but not least, it tells us to take our cable, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing with this twisty tie. I'm going to undo the twisty tie real quick. I'm going to let one loop loose just to give me some room to run it where it wants me to run it right now. And then I'm going to take the twisty tie back onto the cable. Actually, I do want to make sure that the fan connector end is facing away from what I'm about to do. So I'm just going to fold it back on itself a little bit. Put this twisty tie back on. We don't want to stretch the cable, but we don't want to hurt, break any of the pieces here. So now this cable goes through There's a channel. I'm not sure if you can see in there. It is. Yep, you can see it right there. So this channel right here is the channel that this cable needs to go through. So we're going to go ahead and just place that right there and guide it just like in the picture. That's what it says. For the next part, we need to prepare the pin to probe. Look for the sensor. Might be slightly different. Check for 4 wires in the connector. If not, call our support team immediately. So pin to probe, pin to probe. So we got our pin to probe right here in this plastic bag. Let's go ahead and open you up. And then what it wants us to do is check that there's 4 wires. We have 4 wires, a white, a black, a blue, and a brown. So now we're going to insert the pin to probe. Insert pin to probe in the holder. Exact position does not matter as of right now, as we will adjust that later. Create a loop on the cable. So basically, looking at the extruder just like this, motor is facing to my left, along with the parts fan. The hot end fan is on the opposite side facing my desk, and then all the wiring is going out the back right side to me. There's that holder that we placed that nut and that bolt in for earlier. So what we want to do is we want this pin to probe to have a loop in it, just like in the picture with the blue arrows, where it loops back around on itself. That's basically for future alignment. We want the fan cable to be behind that, and then we want to stick the pin to probe through its home. I feel like I maybe tightened this screw just a tiny bit too much. Oh, nope, just a tight fit. I will say at this point, it is going to be better to have it a little bit higher, just so it just doesn't get damaged, but you do want to have it close to the level of the hot end, because you don't need that loop to be too big. And push the cable in the channel, so you got that channel that we just pushed that wire cable through. I'm going to make my loop a lot smaller here. That wire, the fan wire through. Got our loop there. And I'm going to go ahead and push that cable in. And then I'm going to tighten this M3 × 10 screw just slightly. Just enough to hold it into place so it doesn't shift around on me too much. And now for the following steps, please prepare the FS cover. So I know I almost grabbed it earlier. There we go. FS cover. There's our FS cover. And then we need 1 M3 × 10 screw as well. So let's grab that. And got that. Go down step 42, answer the life universe and everything. Place the FS cover on the extruder and align it according to the picture. Tapered side of the cover must be oriented towards you. Insert the screw, mind the correct hole, and tighten it. So if I've got the motor to my right side, the cable bundles to the left, the hot end fan is facing towards me right now. The cover is going to go with the filleted sides. Okay, so the easiest way to tell is that on this printed part, when I'm facing towards the camera right now, is filleted, has a fillet. The back side is flat and has that cutout that you can just probably barely see there, but you can see there's a cutout. It's not a straight line along the back. That cutout is for the filament sensor. That's what FS stands for, I just realized. Of course it does. And then there's 2 holes printed in. One's a smaller hole, that is going to be where the filament goes through. One's a bigger hole, that is where our mounting screw goes down and through. And then if you remember, there was 2 holes in this part that holds the ball bearing. The smaller hole in the front is for the filament. The bigger hole in the back is for this screw we are now threading through. Again, I don't remember, and I'm pretty sure we don't have a nut that we're screwing this into. So you do want to be cautious. And of course, this whole time trying to think about where all these wires are. Don't place any pressure on any of those pieces to bend those wires. And then we tighten this down to cover all of that sensitive area there. Doesn't need to be incredibly tight, I'm sure. It doesn't really say. But you just want to make sure that it doesn't twist and move. I am going to grab my little white piece of filament here. And I'm just going to make sure that this filament hole and everything align. Feels like it aligns. Can't see it. It aligns. I could feel the filament sensor doing its job. It would be nice if I could see the filament through this window here. But I can't. Interesting. All right. So for the following steps, please prepare 2 zip ties. They did provide us with more zip ties. Man, they just give you zip ties out the wazoo for these kits nowadays. So I am going to need a little bit more room here because we are about to bring the printer back to us. So let me get rid of some of this extra stuff that's in my way. Get out of the way there. There we go. There we go. Get my extruder body over here. And before we bring the printer frame back into place with the extruder back where all the wiring is coming out, facing us, we want to, on the top channel here where our 2 top linear bearings are going to go, focus, focus, focus. Sorry. Man, that does not want to focus. Come on. There we go. We want the, just like in the picture, we want the head of the cable tie to be down towards the hot end, and then we're going to place it through the bottom hole so that the other end comes out the other side. They got these cool little printed channels here. Do the same thing on this side as well, just like in the picture. And now we're going to go and lower the x-axis about 1/3 from the top, align the bearings, like in the picture, lower the bearing position to the approximate now, place the extruder on the bearing in the top. Couple must fit perfectly. We'll adjust the lower bearing later on, tighten and cut the zip ties. So just like we mounted this before. So I'm going to turn the back towards me, trying to make sure all my motor wilds that are sitting here wild are not getting pinched or anything. I did mark where the bearing traces were on these bearings. I want to make sure that they're facing up. Just being really particular there. Want the bearings to be in the up and down rotation or orientation here. So this extruder comes in from the front side. Extruder body comes in from the front side. Want to make sure none of the wiring is in the way. It doesn't show us feeding any of the wiring through right now, but I am going to go ahead and pull the, because I know that the pin to probe wire and the part fan wire come through these. You see, it does show it in the next step though. So it's just going to be easier to do this right now to pull this wire and this wire through. And then we do want the sensor cable wire and the motor wire through the extruder, the extruder hot end and thermistor wire are going to stay underneath these rods. So we'll pull these through first. There we go. Guess it would have been a lot easier if I would have removed this belt, but it's a little too late. No, I can go ahead and do it. Just move this belt out of the way. And of course, make sure the zip ties are going in between too. And there we go. Make sure my Chases are up again. There they are. Up and up. And they should just snap right into place. There we go. And then we can get the zip tie started on one side at least. This is a little awkward with the installation. Not too bad. And we do want to make sure that the zip tie head ends up above at the top of the linear bearing, just like it shows in the picture there. It says tighten the zip tie and cut. We'll adjust it later. Place the extruder on the bearing and the top coupler must fit perfectly. Top couple must fit perfectly. All right. And then it does have that head, and I think that is important because it does keep that head of the zip ties out of the way. Don't want to over tighten the zip ties because you can deform the housing of the linear bearing, but you do want them tight enough to where there's no play front to back on the extruder. And then once you have the zip ties nice and tight, I use side cutters, but you can also use the cutters provided on the pliers. It's a lot easier with these side cutters. And we've got it all done there. All right. So extruder cable channel management. So we've already done this part, but yeah, let's make sure we got it right. So the Penda cable on the sensor side and the lowest one, we're going to push them back into the channel. Channel is back, it's back in there through that nice channel and between the smooth rods. And then we want to place the cables on the hot end pin side over the smooth rod and push them back into the channel. So I did miss the fan though. So that is all back in the channel. I'm just going to grab an Allen key. Just make sure that that's all in place. Yep. Good. For the following steps, please prepare the X-axis belt, which I've already got mostly in there anyway. And the X-axis belt, I'm going to go a little outside this directions here because I've already got it weaved through the side of the motor side. So I am going to weave it through the idler side real quick. And we're going to go ahead and get this started in its home here. Just like it shows in the picture, we want to start it, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for you here so that the belt goes down to the end of the channel that it's printed into the part there, and then the teeth on the top grab a hold of the belt, close that out, and then I'm going to use Allen key here to just make sure that this is seated all the way in, and it's the smallest Allen key is what I'm using just to make sure I don't ruin any of the teeth in the printed part, but still can push the belt all the way in. Perfect. And then the step 48's got us guiding it through where I've already guided it through, back through and into this channel of the printed of the X carriage. There's a big open channel there where we put those nuts earlier, and then we put it back around to the side with the motor, and we want to loosen the motor again. So we want to, before you continue, guide the belt through the X-axis, release 2 and 3 screws on the X and rotate the X motor as indicated. So basically we want to all but pull these out. Oh, you know what's funny? Is I took that screw out. I don't remember where I put it now, so let me pull this one out real quick. This is an M3 times 20. I know I've got it somewhere, just don't remember where I put it. right? Yeah. That was smart of me. Put it down somewhere and forgot where. All right, come on. Get out of there. There we go. So, where is this? M3 times 18. M3 times 16 is a special size. I don't remember what size it's supposed to be. No, that's it. It's M3 times 20. I mean, sorry, times 18. So it's gonna put these back in. I'm not gonna put them, so I'm not gonna screw them into the motor housing. I'm just gonna get them back into the printed part so that I don't have to fiddle with them as much here in just a minute. There we go. And make sure this is all the way loose. Just making sure the tensioning screw is all the way loose and not interfering with this screw yet. Yep, it's not. Perfect. All right, get this screw into its home. Whoop, too far. There we go. And we want it rotated towards the hot end on the top, just like it shows in step 49 where the yellow arrow is. We want it to be rotated towards the extruder carriage, like that. And then it's around the, yep, it's good. Insert the flat port into the extruder body. Okay. I'm going to use an Allen key again to get this pushed into its home better. It says you can also use the flat end of a flathead the flathead screwdriver to do it as well. Obviously, that works too. You know what? Let me try that. Might work a little bit better here. Just want to be careful that you don't ruin the teeth on the printed part. Those little small details like that can be easily deformed with any large amount of force, like a metal screwdriver moving over them. So yeah, that worked really well. All right, there will be belt overhang on this side. Don't trim yet. I already did all the tensioning here before, so mine's already trimmed, so I just kind of put it back exactly where it was. I'll pull it out and change it if I need to later. So using your right hand, rotate the motor to its original position, hold it, tension is applied on the belt, use 2 fingers on your left hand, push the belt together. Very small force should be needed, but the belt shouldn't be bent by its own weight before being pressed. If you're struggling with rotating the motor back in position, the belt tension is too high. Depending on the belt being under and overstretched, adjust the amount of the belt in the X carriage, and then we're going to tighten those 2 screws back. When done, rotate the motor to its original position and tighten it to 3 screws again. So we're going to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and test that again. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and tighten these screws back into the motor. Get them both started first. we're back into your home. So are you almost. There we go. Got it. And let's just make sure this one is tightened down too. Good. And that alignment is still good there. That's the next step. Sorry. Line the X6 belt. Both top bottom part of the belt should be parallel above each other. To adjust the belt position, release the screws on the belt on the pulley and move it slightly until you reach the best position. Tighten both screws on the pulley. So everything looks good there. I think I do want to move this pulley out a little bit because the belt is rubbing up against the front end of it. So let me oh, wrong one. There we go. Loosen this up a bit. Okay. There we go. Where's the other one? There it is, and that's the one with the flat end. So I'm gonna make sure that stays there. Let me just wedge that pulley out just a smidgen. Just a pinch. That's good. Get that set screw on the flat part of the shaft tightened back. Move this back. Tighten up this set screw too. And now, yep, now moving it gets it centered directly on the pulley. It's not rubbing either side wall of the pulley during the travel that I can see. Yep, that all looks good. Nice. Beautiful. All right, so use the technique described below to test the belt is properly stretched. Use pliers to hold the X-axis motor shaft. Move the extruder towards the X motor. Do not use excessive force. If the belt is stretched properly, you should feel resistance. An extruder wouldn't move at all. If the belt is too loose, it will deform, create a wave, and jump on the teeth on the pulley. So we've done this before, but let's go ahead and do this again. Let me get to where the shaft is flat right there. Really don't have a whole lot of shaft to grab a hold of. Okay, that feels good. Yep, so I was just grabbing the inside of the shaft there, and it did not wave like they said. Since I've already done this before, it is already cut to size, but you can see here you have that excess of the belt out there using a white marker, even a black marker, because the black marker will still make a mark on there. You can make a mark, pull it out a little bit more, use your side cutters or a pair of scissors to trim it, and then use your screwdriver or Allen key to place it back into place. And then we're going to finally fine-tune the X-axis belt. So now what we're going to do is we're first going to slightly release all of the screws on the motor. Otherwise the upper tensioner won't work. So we're just going to loosen them enough to allow the motor to spin in its axis a little bit here. Be very careful when tightening. You can crack the part. I did this before. Be very careful. Using Allen key, start tightening 3x18 screw inside the X end motor. After each turn or two, check the tension of the belt. For optimal performance, the belt must be a bit harder to press with your fingers. Move the extruder all the way to the X idler and try the belt tension in the middle of the axis. So basically it's saying move this all the way over there. And we've got our tension. And I can feel that it's tight, but it's not really as tight as what I would think it needs to be, in my experience anyway. So I'm going to take this M3 8x18 screw that was placed in this X motor carriage much earlier in this process, and we are going to tighten it down until I can feel that it's hit that screw. And then we're going to tighten it a couple times. There we go. That's a little bit tighter. Great. Let's go a little bit more. Do a little quarter turn there. That feels pretty good. Let's go a little bit further. Still needs a little more. I think it needs a little bit more. You hear that? Kind of sounds like a out of tune guitar string. Really don't want to go much tighter. Pull this back into the middle. Yeah, no, works way better on that side. All right, so I feel like that feels pretty good and sounds pretty good. So now that I've got that done, I can now tighten all these screws back. I'm not going to risk breaking this mount. Although I do believe I have an extra one somewhere printed. It's just better safe than sorry. I don't want to have to go back through all that. So I'm going to tighten all 3 of these screws back in. Since you do have a lot of tension on this screw because it is being pressed up against by the other screw, might need a little bit more force than you're used to. And there we go. All right, next. Nylon guide part preparation. For the following steps, please prepare the nylon black filament, 50 centimeters, 19.7 inch times 1. Use the pliers to cut one end of the filament to create a tip. So that should have come in my upgrade kit, my original upgrade kit. It is. No, that's not it. That can't be it, is it? Yeah, this is it. Let's find out. 19.7 inches. Yeah, looks like this is it. Kind of hard to measure, but yep, that's it. 19.7 inches. Love it. And then we're going to take, I will use the pliers since they're right here handy. We just want to make sure that the tip has got a bit of a, we don't want to cut it, the tip off at all. We just want, you know what, I'm going to use my side cutters. See way better with these things. Just gotta make sure that it's got a point to it. So you don't want it to be any shorter than it already is. Perfect. Got a little tip on there. You know, game with just the tip. All right, and then inside of the extruder housing, there's a hole in the back. That's where the nylon filament goes. Using pliers, insert and twist the nylon filament into the slot. Hold the extruder with the second hand. Be extremely careful. Pliers tend to slide and you can easily damage wires. Check the filament is seated properly. Gently pull it with your hand. The axis should bend a little, but the filament must remain in the slot. If you have issues, try adjust it onto the top. Pro tip here, this is from the Mk2S instructions. These nylon filaments have a curve to them. It's best if you make that curve go up. It just helps keep the wiring from sagging down, because this is going to be for holding wiring into place. So I know you guys can't see in the overhead camera too well, but right in the middle, right between the 2 inserts for the belt is where this nylon filament is going into place. So I'm going to grab with my heel nose pliers here, and I'm going to grab the extruder with my other hand. Does take some force to get it in there. and I should be able to pull. Yep. And of course it's going to want to like bend in and out of the way, but that is now where it goes. So now I need the X carriage backplate parts. X carriage backplate parts are here. So we've got the X carriage back and the cable holder. All right, there, perfect. We're also going to need a M3x40 screw and a M3 standard nut. M3 standard nut. Perfect. Right there, right there. All right. Cable holder assembly. Prepare the M3x40 screw and cable holder from the previous step. Note there is a recess slot for the screw head. So on this cable holder, the print bed side does not have a recess. The top side has a recess, so we put our M3x40 screw through the recessed side, which this has got some really tight tolerance on it. So it is taking some force and some screwing to get it to go into its home. I'm going to grab my driver here. It's going to make things quicker. So I do have to screw mine in. You may not have to, depending on quality of your printed part. That is taking forever. Come on. There we go. And now the screw should be all the way out the other side. And then now we want the X carriage back assembly. We want to flip it over to where we have the printed spot for the nut here. I am going to grab one of these M3x18 screws. Actually, M3x10 should work. I'm going to place it through this hole to pull this nut through. There we go. Sure that gets down into its home. It does recess in there because this is going to be where one of the linear bearings for the X-axis carriage lives, so that nut needs to live in its printed spot completely. All right, and then now we're going to rotate the X carriage back and tighten it. So we've got it in this orientation where the T's up. Our hole down here at the bottom is where I just placed that nut. And then we want to make sure that the cable holder, the U-shaped portion, as they say the instruction, is facing up. And in my case, away from me. And then that M3x40 screw that I just placed will be put in there where that nut just was. And then I can tighten this down, making sure that it is up and down. And there is a there's this printed hole where the wiring will come through. You're going to make sure that the U shape and the bottom of that hole line up according to the instructions, of course. And of course, I twist it right when I say that. And it will want to twist, of course, because you're turning a screw that's around it. There we go. That feels nice and tight. Perfect. I don't need this M3x10 anymore. That was an extra piece anyway. And there we go. We're going to check the U-shaped slot is aligned properly on both parts. So yes, everything looks aligned. And like the cables will travel through them without any hindrance. Now we're going to mount the X carriage back. So push the cables from the extruder through the X carriage back. Start with the IR sensor cable, then the extruder motor and hot end fans. So we're going to start with the sensor cable. It goes through this hole. And the reason why they have you start with this is because it's got the biggest connector. And if you have other wires in the way, of course, they will stop that connector from going through. And then the extruder motor also has a fairly large connector that we need to go ahead and place through this hole as well. Okay, it pulled part way through, most of the way through. There we go. And then the extruder motor and hot end fan. The hot end fan. Here it is. Oh, that's not the hot end fan, that's the Penda probe. So I need to undo this tie now. Just did that tie for the hot end fan, or for the parts fan. Oh, hot end fan. There it is. That's the hot end fan. I need to undo that tie anyway too. Just place that down for a sec. Undoing these twisty ties. Hot end fan. Yep, hot end fan. And then it's going to be the parts fan and the Penda probe. Boy, this Mk2S fan cable just is thick and doesn't want to feed right. There we go. Get unconnected from there. There we go. Parts fan. Oh, let's do the Penda probe first, right? Yeah, Penda probe. It's got a bigger connector there. Might have been prudent to do that connection sooner, but that's okay. It still fit. And now, last but not least, the parts fan. Come on, there we go. Nope, thought I had it. There we go. Come on. Don't want to do that. I was trying to see if the pliers would help me feed this cabling through, but the little locking mechanism for the fan is getting caught. Let me try to twist that around real quick. That helped. So that was a good little tip. The parts fan has that little locking tab on it. Twist that towards the wiring and not towards the plastic, and it will help you feed that through. And before I go pulling all the rest of this through, I'm going to make sure we have the nylon cable through. And point here in the red, the hot end cabling is not going through this. But we want to, last but not least, get this nylon through. So we're going to twist it around a little bit. Get it fed through the hole, and then carefully slide that through. All right, so that's what exactly mine looks like now. Now we need M3 times 10 screws times 4. M3 times 10, 4 of them. 1, 2, put on the plastic here. 3, and where's my 4th? And there's the 4th. All right, got all 4. So now we're going to slide the back up. Want to be careful with the cables as we do this. Some of them like to knot up after being unraveled. So make sure to pull the cables through. Nothing's going to get pinched. There we go. where a fan cable likes to fight, and there is a channel that it goes through on the back printed part and on the actual extruder part. So you want to make sure all these cables get pushed in there. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to myself. And making sure those cables go down into their home as we go. Make sure that all looks good there. Yeah, okay. But you know what? I was a big dummy and put the nylon into the wrong hole. So now I've got to redo the nylon. There it is. Just for future, if you're watching this before you do yours, the hole for the nylon is right above the bottom rod linear bearing, not between the two belts. As I said before, I was 100% wrong. Yeah, that feels good. So hey, caught it now. Don't know why I was thinking it was that hole. That is the hole for one of the bolts, the screws that I'm about to do. So make sure none of these wires are getting pinched as far as I can tell. Yep, everything looks good on that side. That looks good on that side. Use all 4 screws, tighten the X carriage back. So we're going to use all 4 of these M3x10 screws. Just going to hold the extruder and the back together while I do this. Let's get this one started. Yay. Go down to the bottom here. It's basically tucked in almost underneath of the wiring guide that we just installed. There we go. And then get to the top right. Got it. Started, yeah. And then the center one. So there's only 4. I believe there used to be 5. All right, get that down into the plastic. All right, now I can go back and tighten. So get that until it hits the plastic and then go about 90 degrees. Get this one back down to the plastic. About another 90 degrees again. Get this one down to the plastic again. And 90 degrees. And then this one's harder to do, but that feels about right. Perfect. All right, getting there. Textile sleeve parts preparation. So now I'm gonna need 4 zip ties. 1, 2, 3, 4. Grabbed 5. Just need 4. Oh no, 5. I grabbed 5. I said 4. I thought 4. I grabbed 5, and the instructions say 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we need the textile sleeve from the Mk3S upgrade kit. Got those prepared. Open one end of the textile sleeve and slide it on the cable bundle leading from the extruder. Don't forget to include the nylon. All right, so now we want to make sure that all of our cabling is in decent order here first. So let's get that untwisted. Want to make sure the nylon's in there. And we get the sleeve. Leave the length of the wrap should be slightly longer than the cable holder. Oh, come on. Nylon just popped out on me. Just gonna tuck it in. Gently twist the sleeve to make it smaller and tighter around the cable, and then slide the sleeve towards the extruder. And then we're going to use 3 zip ties so you want to twist it so it's nice and tight, and then slide it towards the extruder. Okay. Important, cut the remaining part of each zip tie using pliers as close as possible ahead. Note the correct position of the zip ties. So on this wire mount piece, there's some channels. There's 3 bottom ones, and we want the head facing down and towards the x-axis motor of the zip tie, the head of the zip tie down and towards the x-axis motor, because we do want it to finish on the opposite side of the x-axis motor, just like it showed in the other picture. So we've got those fed in there, and now we're going to go ahead and get them started. And then you need to be right off of the idler side of the X carriage, but on the top of the bundle. Basically, you don't want it to be too high, otherwise it'll hit the top of the Z and the Z motion on top of the frame, and you don't want it to be too far to the left or the right, because then it will hit the frame on that side during the X motion. So get that nice and tight in there. Make sure I'm gonna grab make sure it's tight first. It's good. That's good. No, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna get these cut nice and flush. I like how they just launch up out of the way. That was fun. Sorry, the little things amuse me. Now we're going to use the 2 remaining zip ties through the 2 upper channels here, and then it looks like they have it in the same orientation with the head of the zip tie. No, they don't. They have it, so the head of the zip tie is going to go up this time, but still on the X motor side. Boom and boom. And then we're going to, before tightening the zip ties, add cable from the hot end. So now we need to free up the hot end cables. So we're going to cut the zip tie that is holding the hot end cables together, being very careful not to hit any of the cables. And then we're going to go ahead and start these zip ties around the cables here, just like it shows in the picture on screen currently. All right, so those are added in. And we want to go ahead and get these cables started into the bundle of wires. And then we'll tighten the zip ties down. So we want to make sure that they are where they need to be. There we go. Okay. And then now it's got the zip tie heads down below and not off to either side, it looks like from the picture. So I'm just gonna follow their lead there, do the same thing. Make sure you don't over tighten these because these cables are delicate and can be broken out of their homes on the hot end very easily. So once I have those in place, I can then take my side cutters, being very careful not to cut any of those wires, and cut the excess off. Yeah. All right. Compare the look, and that looks exactly the same. Perfect. Once the textile sleeve, open the textile sleeve and insert the cables from the hot end. Compare the look. I'm going to go ahead and feed these cables all the way, the rest of the way into the textile sleeve before I have any hobros. And this is going to be it for tonight. I'm going to cut the stream off at this point. It's already been, what, 2.5, almost 3 hours? 3 hours. It's been over 3 hours already. Wow, really? You know, time flies when you're having fun. 3 hours, 8 minutes, 10 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds. 11, 12, 13, 14, 20, blue 42. All right, let's get these cables the rest of the way in this textile sleeve here. I think it tells us to do that later on in a step, but it's just gonna be easier to store them this way. I don't believe that I'll have to undo this, but if I do, then I'll just cross that bridge when I get to it. Sorry, I'm a little off camera there for the top cam anyway. All right, got those all nice and neat in there now. And that looks good. All right, so that is the extruder assembly of the Mk2S / Mk3 upgrade to the Mk3S. And it's Habro time, and it's funny they've updated it so that you ration off your Habro gummy bears into a certain number for each step. So I should have eaten 15, 25, 35% of my Habros now, and this being the hardest step of the bunch, we're supposed to eat 20%. So 6, 7, 8 of our gummy bears. So I am going to follow the instructions and eat 8 of my gummy bears. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, yeah, 8. I don't think I have enough to do the rest of the steps, but that's fine. I actually have more Habros somewhere around. So hats off. It was the toughest chapter in the history of original Prusa i3 printers. Have 20% of the bears and rest for a while. Are we there yet? Almost. Check the final look and compare it to the picture. Check everything. Let's move to the LCD assembly. So let me click I have completed. I'm pretty sure more than 183 people other than me have completed this guide. So I know it's rude to talk while you're eating, but they're just gummy bears. They're just gummy bears. So anyway, just want to say thanks for anybody who's watching this video after the live stream. I know I saw someone pop in on YouTube, but didn't go anything in the chat. So actually, hold on. Sorry. Let me do that again. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. I saw someone jump in the live chat, or excuse me, live stream, but didn't say anything on the live chat. So anyway, thanks for joining. I will continue this probably next Monday, maybe Tuesday night. I'm going to try to maybe do it Sunday night too, but there's no promises there. But definitely next Monday I want to get this done and up and running. I have some other little projects that I've been working on that I can't wait to share with you guys yet, but I don't want to share until I know that they are you know, on their way or working. I'm also pretty close to having enough parts to where I feel like I can start streaming the assembly of another thing I've been wanting to do, which if you haven't seen all those boxes right behind me there, and you'll see the little scale model of the DeLorean from Back to the Future. All of those boxes stacked out of frame, and including that box behind the old Prusa Mk2S frame, is a large scale DeLorean model that is a subscription service. I won't promo the company because they're not sponsoring me, but it's huge. The big box at the bottom that I'm kind of blocking there, that's the plate that it sits on once it's done. It's all metal. It's going to have LEDs, so I'm going to build that live on stream as well, but I wanted to wait until I got enough parts to where it wasn't going to be a month-long build, that it might be just a stream or two, or maybe 3, depending on how much longer it takes for all the parts to come. But I've finally got enough parts to where I feel like I can get things started, and the rest will come as they, or the final pieces will come. I actually don't even know how many pieces it's supposed to be. So anyway, so that's going to be a future thing. And then I've got another little project I'm working on that has to do with 3D printing that that I've been kind of working on and talking with people about, and we'll share that in the near future once I get some things in the mail. So anyway, once again, thanks for joining me. It's been a pleasure. I hope you learned something from my mistakes. I hope you learned something from my banter and candor. And of course, as I always say, you know, be nice to each other, hug each other more, love each other, use return signals. You don't have to listen to me. Don't use them if you don't want, but you know, it's just a lot better if you do. People can't read your minds, you know. And you know, be sure to like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, hit subscribe if you want to see more of my content. I plan on trying to do a lot more things in the future, but you know, I don't have a set schedule as of yet. Hopefully maybe one day, but who knows? Probably never. We'll see. But thanks a lot. Have a wonderful night.